Statistics from 2020 and 2021 on teenage pregnancy and HIV infections in young people made me really wonder what I learned about sex in primary and high school. What I can recall from my first lesson about sex in grade 7 was that if I hugged a boy, I would fall pregnant. I continued to not hug a boy for the rest of that year. What this highlights to me now is that there is a level of discomfort that some life skills and life orientation teachers experience when it comes to the topic of sex and sexuality, and this seems to still be the case at present day.
I am a 12-year-old girl. I go to school in Soweto. This year we learned nothing about sex. They always skip that topic.
I go to school in Soweto. I'm a 16-year-old girl. I'm in grade 11. We didn't learn anything this year because our teacher said we know everything about sex. I don't know anything about it. And the education that I have about it, it's not enough for me to know everything about it in the grade that I'm in.
Considering this reality that paints a picture of the learning experiences of comprehensive sexuality education, one wonders how first-year students negotiate their anticipated sexual encounters.
I am a first-year student at the University of the Northwest. I went to an all-girls school, and what I can remember being taught about sex in LO was the basics, the most basics. We learned about abstinence, protection, the dangers of STIs, the dangers of STDs, and that was point blank what I can remember being taught in LO. And then I felt that all my questions about sex were not answered in high school in preparation for university, because bridging the gap between sensuality in high school and university is a different chapter all on its own. Discovering oneself is different, and I felt that all my questions weren't necessarily answered, not because of anything except I didn't ask them, because I felt that it was a bit taboo. My teachers were conservative and I didn't want to be viewed differently, so that led me to shrugging everything off. I didn't ask questions. Not that they didn't give me answers, I didn't ask.
I am a first-year student, and what I can remember about being taught about sex in LO was the introduction to the possibility of a sexual interaction is usually between a boy and a girl. It's only supposed to happen at a certain age, and we're taught about abstinence. We are taught about STIs and STDs. I feel that all my questions about sex were not answered in high school in preparation for university, because going into university, I had so many questions. Also, in the schooling environment and the curriculum, there is not a lot of space and comfortability in the classroom to be able to ask some questions, because, it would be deemed inappropriate to ask about pleasure. The environment didn't allow, and we were definitely not going to be able to raise your hand and ask. I do have a lot of questions still, and you just go about it your own way. You do your own research, you watch your own TV shows, you read about it, you're by yourself. You ask friends who've had experiences that you haven't had, that you want to know about, because in school, in LO, it's not really explained and touched on as much as we as a student would love to hear about it.
I'm a first-year student. If I can remember correctly, in high school and primary school, the topic about sex was not really broken down. For instance, in primary school, they would say sex is bad, don't do it at a young age, or only when you get married you can do it, which is something that is understandable, because we are in primary school. Children get exposed to such things at a young age. But these days, social media has given people a platform to do such things out on the open. High school, I know, for example, is obviously different in a sense where only when you get to grade 11 or matric is when you go into depth about it, but only the disease or the illness side of things, where you can contract STIs, herpes, STDs, HIV, and all of those things, but they don't go in depth about what really is sex, what happens in the process, what you feel, or the boundaries that you can make for yourself as an individual, they don't talk about any of that.
I feel all my questions about sex were not answered in high school in preparation for university, because all they tried to do in high school was prevent us from having sex. They didn't teach us ways in which we can keep ourselves safe while having sex, and things to do to practice safe sex other than condomizing. So I don't think I was taught everything that I needed to know in high school. Most of the things that I know now, I've had to learn myself from past experiences, or from even listening to people talk about sex in university.
Against this backdrop, the content and importance of comprehensive sexuality education continues to be highly debated by parents and other institutions, including the church.
I am a parent of a young girl and twin boys. I believe comprehensive sexual education was implemented due to the fact that the older generation, i.e. our parents, did not feel comfortable speaking to their kids about sexual education. Teenagers would rather speak to their friends or peers about sex than their parents. This obviously becomes a situation of the blind leading the blind. I believe that the education system saw the need to introduce comprehensive sexual education due to the fact that there was an increase in the number of teenage pregnancies. This is obviously as a result of lack of information and lack of education in terms of sexual education.
I am a parent of 2 daughters and a son. And I believe that CSE was implemented because there has been a challenge in life, as the government see it, that the talk about sex has been hidden, and the intention was to try and bring about understanding for children, thinking that when they know their body parts and they understand sexuality, they will then be able to prevent themselves or prevent illnesses that could come through this, and they may not indulge in sex. That's why it was implemented, I believe. However, my view and my observation is that they've opened the door of CSE to children who, to begin with, do not or did not have an understanding of who they are in their age groups, number one. Having respect for the elderly, number two. And three, also having respect for their peers. So CSE was intended well, but it has actually opened a door where I believe these children are now trying to experience and explore what it feels like to indulge in it.
I am a parent of 2 girls and a boy, and I believe that CSE was implemented to curb pregnancies in young girls. But then my view is it didn't do what it was supposed to do, but instead it made young girls and boys want to experience sexually, especially when they said they can use these condoms if they do whatever. So that made it worse, because now children wanted to experience the real thing. Sex is made for married people.
What remains clear is that the approach to teaching and learning about sex poses new challenges to not only teachers and parents, but also learners transitioning into adulthood. This podcast episode is a part of the 2021 in-depth reporting project Year of the Student. The full project with articles and other multimedia can be viewed on witsvuvuzela.com. This is a project produced by the Honours in Journalism class at the Wits Centre for Journalism. Please see the show notes for full credits.